Have you ever felt that pull towards, say, a musician or an actor, maybe even a sports figure, where your admiration, it goes beyond just enjoying their work, right? It becomes something, I don't know, more intense,
Hmm.
like a truly personal connection. Maybe you obsess over every detail, you talk about them constantly, maybe even feel like you actually know them.
Yeah,
Is that just, harmless fun, or is it maybe hinting at something deeper, something more consuming?
it's a great question.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into celebrity culture. We're going to explore its surprising history, its psychological
Oh,
impacts.
they're fascinating.
Absolutely. And the sometimes unsettling ways that intense fandom can kind of intersect with what we often think of as cult mentality.
Right.
So, our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack the complexities of celebrity worship, understand how it evolved, look at the psychological side, and maybe pinpoint those markers where admiration starts looking like something else.
Exactly. We've got academic research, sociological insights, some really interesting history to draw on.
Okay, so let's start there. When we talk about celebrity worship, what are we actually defining? What does that look like?
Well, we're usually talking about celebrity worship syndrome,
Mm,
or CWS.
mm.
Uh, it's basically defined as this obsessive, very one-sided emotional attachment to a celebrity.
One-sided. Okay.
And it exists on a spectrum. So on one end, you've got entertainment social. That's pretty common, like enjoying discussions about a celebrity with your friends.
Sure, standard fan stuff.
Then it can move into intense personal. That's where someone might genuinely start to think of a celebrity as like their soulmate.
Wow. Okay.
And then at the extreme end, it can reach borderline pathological behaviors. Things like being willing to do something illegal if the celebrity asks them to.
And this isn't just limited to, say, pop stars or movie actors, right?
Yeah.
We've seen this kind of intense admiration, well, everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about Beatlemania, the sheer frenzy there, or Swifties today, Trekkies, Juggalos, Michael Jackson's Moonwalkers. It cuts across genres and time periods.
Exactly. And what's really important to understand is that researchers categorize CWS as, well, both a behavioral addiction and a significant social phenomenon.
An addiction.
Yeah, in a way. So while it often starts as harmless fun, this worship isn't just a metaphor. It's a measurable psychological attachment that can really start to mirror addictive behaviors, even though, obviously, you've never met the person.
That's fascinating. I've always wondered, though, was this idea of celebrity always a thing? Or is it more of a modern invention? It feels so pervasive now.
That's a great question. And yeah, the history is maybe not what you'd expect. I mean, if you look way back, ancient Greek heroes, they sought eternal renown, right?
Right.
Kleos.
Fame after death.
And medieval saints got canonical status, but again, usually only after they died. Modern celebrities, though, the individuals known during their lifetimes to way more people than could possibly know each other personally.
So who were the first celebrities, though?
For centuries, the earliest celebrities were mostly rulers and conquerors, people holding immense power. Their fame was tied to their status.
But the kind of celebrity culture we recognize, that really kicked off later.
Exactly. The 18th century seems to be the real starting point. That's when the terms celebrity and star became widely used. And there's some amazing historical anecdotes that show how little human nature changes.
Oh, like what?
Well, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the philosopher, he published his autobiography in 1782 and then apparently complained constantly about everyone gossiping about him.
Ha! Some things never change.
Right. Or Lord Byron, the poet. He literally woke up famous after a poem was published in 1812.
Yep.
And by that time, the 18th century, performers and authors were already dealing with what we'd call stalkers and groupies.
No way, back then.
Yep. And by the 19th century, some were getting hundreds of letters a year asking for autographs. And get this, early celebrity endorsements.
Seriously?
Yeah, like a famous 19th century chef, Alexis Sawyer, selling his own brand of sauces with his picture on the label. Or public figures endorsing wigs and face creams, way before radio or TV ads. They were even holding benefits for disaster victims, long before telethons were a thing.
So the whole infrastructure was starting to build. What drove that shift?
Several big societal changes, really. First, literacy just exploded across North America and Europe. More people reading meant more people reading about these figures.
Makes sense.
Plus, people started having more leisure time, so more time to go to theaters, operas, lectures. And then you have the rise of democratic movements, this new emphasis on individuality. Society became full of individual-loving people, as one historian put it.
Interesting. And technology.
Oh, huge. new visual media, like affordable, compact photographs in the 1860s, suddenly you could see these people easily. Heavily illustrated magazines in the 1890s.
Right.
And maybe most critically, the penny press in the 1830s. Newspapers became super cheap, and they realized celebrity fascination was a great way to attract mass readership. One paper even named its steamship Fanny Elssler, after a famous ballet dancer.
So it really sounds like Hollywood didn't invent celebrity at all. It just inherited and maybe perfected a system that was already going strong in the theater world. The tools changed dramatically, obviously gossip papers versus viral tweets, but that human impulse seems pretty consistent.
Exactly. And interestingly, the Hollywood studio system, the 1930s to 50s, where they tightly controlled the stars, that was actually kind of an aberration.
How so?
Well, the decline of the studios and then the rise of the internet since the 90s, it's actually brought celebrity culture back towards its more anarchic 19th century roots. There's more back and forth influence between the public and the celebrities now. It's almost come full circle in a way.
That's incredible. Okay, so let's fast forward. How does knowing this history help us understand today's intense online fandom? I'm thinking of stan culture especially. How does that start to echo, well, actual cults?
Okay, so to understand that potential link,
Hmm.
it helps to look at some classic cult recruitment and retention tactics as the kind of framework. First, there's often love bombing. Recruiters overwhelm potential members with affection, admiration, making them feel like they finally belong. This often targets people feeling isolated or unloved.
Okay.
Then there's information control and isolation. Cults work really hard to filter what information members receive, keep them away from outside or critical viewpoints, and control the narrative completely.
Got it.
And finally, fear and guilt are powerful tools. Threats of being exiled, losing the community, or facing other negative consequences if they question things or try to leave.
That's a clear, if chilling framework. But playing devil's advocate here for a sec,
Yeah.
isn't some of that just normal fan community stuff? Like the enthusiasm, the shared passion, isn't that the love bombing? How do you tell the difference?
That's precisely where the lines can get blurry. Fandoms absolutely provide a powerful sense of community and belonging. That fulfills a really basic human need, right? Connecting with others who get your specific obsession. You see it in things like the synchronized fan chants at K-pop concerts, like for BTS. It creates this incredibly strong, unified feeling.
Yeah, that energy is undeniable.
But online, things get amplified. Social media algorithms tend to create echo chambers. Your feed confirms what you already believe, and it isolates you from different
The
perspectives.
filter bubble.
Exactly. There was this interview with a K-pop fan, let's call her Prisha. She said she'd instantly believe positive news about her favorite group, 17, no fact-checking needed. But if she saw negative news about another group, Risey, she was immediately skeptical. Her feed was basically set up to reinforce her existing bias. And this leads us straight into parasocial relationships.
Right, I've heard that term.
These are those one-sided connections where you feel a strong sense of familiarity, even intimacy, with someone you don't actually know, usually a celebrity.
Like feeling a news anchor is your friend.
Kind of, yeah. It was first really noticed with TV back in 1956, creating this illusion of intimacy. But social media has put it on steroids. It gives fans seemingly unlimited access to their idols' personal updates, day-to-day lives, fostering this feeling of a real connection.
And some celebrities actively cultivate that, right?
Oh, definitely.
Mhm.
K-pop idols, for instance, do fan calls, meet and greets. They actively nurture this very asymmetrical dynamic. And when these one-sided bonds become super intense, it can morph into what researchers sometimes call a cult of personality.
Meaning the devotion shifts.
Yeah, it shifts from the work, the music, the acting, to the person themselves, almost regardless of their actions.
And if someone genuinely believes their favorite celebrity can do no wrong, what are the potential real-world problems there?
Well, the big one is that fans can just stop thinking critically. They blindly believe things or fail to fact-check information coming from or about their idol.
Any example?
We've seen things like Kim Kardashian promoting a drug, but not including the required risk information. Or Justin Bieber posting a pro-Israel message. But the image used was actually of ruins in Gaza, which caused huge controversy. It shows a breakdown in discernment.
It really raises the question, why do people form these intense, one-sided connections? Especially when, logically, you know you don't really know them.
It's complex, but there are a few factors. Our brains are sort of wired to feel warmth towards faces we see repeatedly. Simple familiarity breeds liking.
Okay.
Then there's the search for connection. Some research links strong parasocial bonds to loneliness, but interestingly, other studies suggest highly social people are also quite prone to them.
Oh, really? That's counterintuitive.
It might be that people skilled at real relationships are also good at forming these imagined ones. And maybe there's an appeal to relationships that are, well, less demanding. No conflict, no real maintenance needed. Plus, the object of affection is usually talented or good-looking or funny.
So, an idealized, easy relationship.
Kind of. And it's not new. There's evidence of intense celebrity crushes dating all the way back to ancient Rome. It seems to be a pretty enduring human behavior.
Okay, so we've touched on how seemingly harmless admiration can blur lines. What does the research say about the actual psychological consequences when celebrity worship really intensifies, moving beyond just healthy admiration?
Well, the research generally shows weak but pretty consistent negative associations between high levels of celebrity worship and various indicators of poor mental health.
Like what specifically?
Things like depression, anxiety, lower life satisfaction, higher general psychological distress, and also something called maladaptive daydreaming.
And maladaptive daydreaming.
Yeah, basically excessive consuming fantasy life that interferes with reality. Now, a specific study of, I think it was over 1,700 Hungarian adults, gave some more detailed insights.
Okay.
For self-esteem, the data showed a noticeable trend. For women, higher levels of celebrity worship were linked to a steeper drop in self-esteem compared to men in the study.
So it hit women's self-esteem harder.
It seems that way in this sample, yeah. And other research has linked excessive CWS to things like body shape dissatisfaction, eating disorders, and being more open to cosmetic surgery, particularly among women.
What else did that study find?
It also looked at perceived daytime sleepiness. And here, the link between celebrity worship and feeling sleepy during the day was significantly stronger for younger people compared to older ones.
Younger people felt sleepier. Why?
Well, one possible explanation is that excessive celebrity admiration might fuel more of that maladaptive daydreaming we mentioned. And that kind of intense fantasizing is associated with daytime sleepiness. Younger people just tend to report more of those experiences.
Interesting. Did it matter if the celebrity was the same gender as the fan?
Surprisingly, no. The study found that whether you intensely admire someone of the same or the opposite gender didn't seem to significantly change the mental health impact. It really seems to be the intensity of the worship itself that matters most.
Right. So, bringing this all together, what's the main takeaway here? It sounds like while these parasocial relationships are common, maybe even normal to a degree,
Yes.
they can become genuinely unhealthy if they start taking over someone's life, like messing with real relationships or just basic daily functioning.
That's exactly right. But it's really important to balance this. We need to acknowledge the positive side of fandom, too.
Okay, like what?
Well, it can be a great form of online escapism, provide real comfort, foster a sense of being seen, not being alone. It can have genuine psychological benefits.
You hear people say things like, "This song saved my life."
Exactly. Or they talk about the profound emotional experience of meeting their hero. And for some groups, maybe marginalized groups like LGBTQ youth, finding identification with a public figure can make them feel less alone, more understood. So it's definitely not all negative. It's a spectrum.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, let's broaden the lens now. We've talked a lot about entertainers, but what about political figures? This feels particularly relevant today. How do we differentiate between just widespread popularity for a leader and something more like a full-blown personality cult? That seems like a crucial line to understand.
It absolutely is. And there are models researchers use to try and distinguish these different degrees of charisma. A true personality cult is generally defined as the godlike glorification of an individual leader, an exaltation of their authority that often parallels religious worship, carrying a kind of sacral aura.
God-like glorification. Okay. How do they measure that?
Well, the model looks at two key dimensions. First is the representational aspect. How is that leader's charismatic authority constructed? Mainly through images, narratives, ranging from just popular, let's say, profane, all the way to sacred.
Okay, how they're presented.
Right. And the second dimension is social practices.
Yeah.
How do people actually engage with those images and with the leader? Through rituals, through sycophantic, over-the-top praise, behaviors that reflect deep personal devotion to their authority.
Sycophantic, meaning like excessive flattery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This builds on Max Weber's classic idea of charismatic authority, that personal devotion and trust in an individual's extraordinary, almost superhuman qualities. It's different from just celebrity, which is often more tied to commercialism, media.
Mm,
It doesn't necessarily inspire that same sense of like ethical duty or intense personal loyalty.
that makes sense. Okay, can we use some real-world examples to see how this works? Maybe comparing a clear benchmark of a personality cult to other popular political figures?
Sure. I think the clearest historical benchmark for a true full-blown personality cult would have to be Stalin.
Okay, why him specifically?
Well, his cult just permeated everything in Soviet society. Images were everywhere, movies, posters, art, all officially approved. People even had pictures of him in their homes next to religious icons. And the sycophantic praise was mandatory. Officials constantly used terms like great leader, father of the people. His cult was also incredibly resilient. Official images basically detached him from specific policies. He was presented as these archetypes: father, teacher, savior.
So failures didn't stick to him.
Often not directly. People might blame local officials for terrible things, even the gulags, but not Stalin himself. And the religious parallels were intense. Depictions often mirrored Christ or Orthodox saints, sometimes with halos. People would literally pray before his picture. Public events became these rituals with endless standing ovations.
That's intense. Okay, so using Stalin as the benchmark, how do more recent figures sometimes associated with strong personal followings, like, say, Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump, compare on those dimensions?
Well, they both show strong tendencies in those areas, though maybe manifested differently. For widespread symbolic elevation, Putin has those official action man images, right?
Hmm.
The shirtless photos, the wilderness stuff, plus tons of internet memes. And you definitely see extreme sycophantic behavior from high-ranking officials, Patriarch Kirill calling his rule a miracle of God, things like that.
Okay. And Trump?
Trump actively participated in his own glorification. Remember the photoshopped image of his face on Rocky Balboa's body? Unofficial art depicted him on Mount Rushmore. Supporters praised him intensely, even on things that seemed counter to their own stated beliefs, like vaccines for some. And you had high-level officials making incredibly sycophantic statements, Rick Perry calling him the chosen one, Mike Pence's effusive praise.
Right. What about the resilience factor?
Both show resilience to failures. Putin's public image often seems detached from specific policy outcomes in the media directed at his base. Loyalty sometimes appeared to strengthen even amid obvious falsehoods, like denying the initial Russian presence in Crimea or despite negative economic impacts from sanctions. Blame often gets shifted elsewhere to people behind Putin's back.
Yeah, Trump.
Trump's following also showed remarkable resilience. Supporters often maintain loyalty even when his actions or statements seem to contradict their own core beliefs. You even saw former critics sometimes transform into passionate supporters.
And the religious parallels.
Striking examples for both. Putin has been depicted in the style of Russian icons, with halos, or even as an angel. There are reports of rituals like public pilgrimages along paths he walked, and his annual call-in show has this quasi-religious feel of him fixing problems.
Mm.
For Trump, he's been depicted similarly, like an Orthodox icon, sometimes referred to explicitly as Lord and Savior. His rallies were frequently described by observers and even some attendees as feeling like church, with him delivering the gospel.
Okay, that paints a clear picture. Now, how does someone like, say, Jacinda Ardern, who was globally popular but perhaps perceived differently, fit into this model?
Right, Ardern presents a useful contrast. On symbolic elevation, there's much less evidence of official charisma construction. You saw unofficial images like her as Wonder Woman or Princess Leia, and fans certainly praised her, calling her the best leader. But that really intense, sycophantic praise often came more from international media. It didn't seem to permeate all layers of New Zealand society in quite the same way as with Putin or Trump.
And resilience.
This is key. Her popularity seemed much more directly linked to political success and perceived performance. The imagery focused on her responses to specific events, the Christchurch Mosque Massacre, COVID-19, and crucially, her popularity did fluctuate. She experienced a significant personal popularity crash when some policies received a lukewarm reception. That suggests she wasn't seen as infallible by her constituents in the same way.
So her support was more conditional on results.
It appears so. And on the religious parallels dimension, while she was sometimes portrayed in quasi-religious terms like a living saint or echoing Virgin Mary imagery, formal rituals weren't really prevalent. Her interactive Facebook Live sessions were notably conversational, lacking that intense, active community worship dynamic seen in the other examples.
So connecting this back to the bigger picture and the model,
Yeah.
where does this leave us?
Well, using this framework, figures like Stalin and arguably Trump and Putin seem to fall more clearly into the domain of true personality cults. They exhibit strong tendencies on both the representational and the social practice dimensions, the imagery and the behavior.
And figures like Ardern or maybe even Barack Obama with the Hope poster and the Obama Saya talk.
Those phenomena seem closer to what sociologists call civil religion. There's high symbolic representation, yes, but the loyalty is often more directed towards the office or the ideals the leader is seen to embody for the nation, like hope or compassion rather than an unquestioning personal worship of the individual leader themselves, regardless of their actions or policies. Ardern, embodying compassion for New Zealand, fits better there.
That's a really useful distinction, personality cult versus civil religion. Okay, so reflecting on all of this, from CWS to political cults,
Yeah.
what does this mean for us, for you listening, trying to navigate this incredibly complex digital world we're in? The lines feel so blurred sometimes.
I think the biggest takeaway is the absolutely critical and probably growing need for critical thinking. Just questioning what you encounter online.
Everything.
Yeah, pretty much everything. It doesn't matter if it's from some random user, a big news outlet you trust, or even, global icon like Beyoncé herself. Information needs to be engaged with critically, not just passively consumed.
So it really comes down to actively engaging, verifying facts when you can, and consciously choosing discernment over just blind belief or joining the chorus.
Exactly.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe something for you to mull over. In a world where admiration can so easily tip into obsession, where figures from pop stars to politicians can evoke this incredibly profound devotion, how do we distinguish between genuine connection and maybe manufactured loyalty? And what's our personal responsibility in cultivating that vital sense of discernment?